Hello and welcome everyone, my name is Drewlik and we are doing another Drewlik how-to. Now this topic today seems a bit obvious at the beginning. The topic is how to burst people. You know, the immediate response would be, well, I don't know, you just burst them. But actually a lot more goes into doing that than you would generally suspect at the beginning. So we have to kind of dive very deep into the actual game mechanics for this to really get a grasp on how to actually burst somebody, because I'm not seeing people doing all too well with the entire concept of bursting people. So there are a few concepts that need explaining. But firstly, the other introduction I want to do is, when you think about getting burst, getting globaled, what is one of the first classes? If you're thinking of danger of getting bursted, I think what many people think of as the very first class, at least that was at 55, is the Arsenal Mercenary or Gunnery Commando, for that matter. Doesn't really matter because it's the same class. So they really are in fear for some reason of this particular spec on this particular class, of specifically getting bursted. If there's more than one of these classes and they both target the same guy, he's most likely going to get bursted. Now, how did they manage to do this? To show you this, I'm on my Mercenary right now, and the first thing you will notice on a Arsenal Mercenary or Gunnery Commando is that there is something which I would call, it's not a general term, it's just something I would call that way, a natural combo. Now, I'm talking about combos a lot, and you're going to hear that a bit more often in this video. The specific order of your spells does matter a lot when you burst people. Now, what I mean with natural combo is it's pretty straightforward that you are using Heatseeker missiles after you use your Tracer missile. This is very easily explained because the Heatseeker does 25% more damage after a Heatseeker missile is applied. So what you would generally do is you cast the Tracer, and immediately after that you get a Heatseeker missile. Now this is something which people don't really have to put a lot of thought into. They just do it because they will spam Tracer missile all game long if they can't play. And what will then happen is, after they use the Tracer, this will proc automatically and they can use Blazing Bolts. So they have a 3-piece combo without actually having to think about it. And this is the main reason why Arsenal Mercenaries burst so well, because the combo they need is required is so easy. Now, I don't really like the spec because it's very RNG dependent. The output can be absolutely enormous, or it can be absolutely utter crap, because it really depends on if your Heatseeker crits or if your Blazing Bolts stacks crit. If they don't, then it's not very consistent. But I digress. The general theme right here is that this is a very, very natural flowing combo. So you can see the damage coming in right here. Comes in at an instant, it comes in at the same time, and if that were a player, then he would drop instantly around 40% of his HP without doing anything special. Now this is not OP, and this is not the only class that can do it, and this is very important that you keep that in mind. And keeping that in mind, we have to dive in really, really deep into game mechanics. Now, the only thing theoretically obstructing you from doing infinite amounts of damage, or burst damage in that matter, is something that's called the global cooldown. It means an overall cooldown after you use an ability. You have a 1-second lockout. I mean, surely you have played the game and you have experienced global cooldown and know that you have to wait a certain time before or after global cooldown can run out. But the general specifics of a global cooldown is something which you really have to explore to its fullest extent if you want to properly burst somebody. So there are certain rules that apply when talking about global cooldowns. Firstly, there are off-global cooldown abilities. There are abilities that do not respect global. So most of your defensive cooldowns are off global. Some of the offensive are as well. So there are certain buffs which are completely off global, and they need to be used off global because you only have a certain amount of globals to burst somebody. Usually you will have 3 to 5 globals to adequately burst somebody, because you need about 2 seconds to react if you're a bad player, or 1 second if you're very good and you're really paying attention to what's happening in the game. Now, in this time where he has to react, you can completely surprise an enemy. So you have a time window with every bursting, with every combo of, I don't know, about 3 or 4 globals, or 3 to 5 as I just put it. 5 is a bit much, maybe it's a very bad player, but generally you will have 3 to 4 globals in which you can do whatever you want. And you really have to think about how you are on your class going to use these 4 globals, which abilities you're going to use for bursting somebody, and in which order. Because, as I said, it's very important to understand the global cooldown. Though the first thing to note is that if you have a cast that is long, if you're a caster, or maybe you have a channel ability, like Ravage, if you have a cast that is longer than 1 second, longer than the global cooldown, then the global cooldown that is triggered by this cast has run out by the time that this cast finishes. So you can either queue up a second cast, which is not something I would recommend when bursting someone, but you could. This is what is cast queuing, which is why you would spam a particular button in maybe PvE or something like this. But you can use that to a greater extent because you can use a cast at the beginning and all of your instants and procs at the end, which means you get 1 extra global. Why do you get 1 extra global? Because at the beginning of your cast, your enemy maybe is not aware of you attacking you. So with the ending of the cast, the damage with a regular cast comes at the end of this cast, and you can instantly queue up a second spell behind this. So the combo which we just talked about, the Tracer Missile into Heatseeker, is one of these examples. You cast it, the global cooldown runs out, and you cast the Heatseeker right after it. So right now we are only locked out 1 global cooldown, and we already have bursted with 2 abilities. That is very important to note. It's only kind of relevant for casters, it's not that relevant for melees, but I'm going to get into melees a bit later. The second thing is you really have to use your high damage abilities at the right time. So it is no use if you spam your procs into somebody and use all of your abilities and everything which is your burst potential, when you could save them and use them at a time where your target is not just vulnerable, which I was talking about the Drewlik how-to before that, but you're also using these your highest damage abilities in the shortest amount of time. Now you will ask, why is that so important? Now, as you can have a look right here, this is how it not should look. It shouldn't look like this. It should much rather look like this. Now, with doing this second thing, you are giving your opponent much less time to react. Now, given you give him more time to anticipate your move, but you can kind of pressure him without using all of your abilities. Now there's something very important concept coming into there, something I cannot talk too in depth about because it's already getting kind of long, this video. The concept of kind of baiting out an enemy cooldown is you kind of pressure him without using your burst. He has to use his cooldowns, and then you can burst him after his cooldowns run out. Or he does not see the danger he's in, you can just blindly set up your combo, and then all at once you just smash in all the damage. The counterplay to that would be he knows exactly your abilities and waits for your abilities. That's like the next level step. But that's far too advanced. The basic idea right here is that you have bad players or average players or medium players or even players who may not even be aware that you're attacking them. If you're ranged and you attack from behind or from the side, they may be not even aware that you're there. If you're a melee and you're stealth opening, they don't know if you're there. And it all depends on how much damage you can deal in your given amount of time. Now, for that, it is very different from class to class, because they all play very differently. You will have certain dot specs, which is to note that you, before you burst, should always apply your dots. This is another concept of the global cooldown. Why is that so? If you use a dot before you burst somebody, then the dot damage, the regular damage coming into someone, will even be applied while you are bursting him. So you are getting some extra damage in without you actively doing something. So a dot you applied for 5 seconds earlier now deals damage now that you're bursting him. So that's kind of one thing. The other thing is obviously what I talked about earlier. You are pressuring him without using any big abilities. You can dot anyone. With the dot classes work like this, that you can just easily dot people, and they will have to use abilities sooner or later if they're not getting healed. The other concept is there are certain delay abilities, something like the thermal detonator or the corrosive. I'm not quite sure what it's called. The Operative, the concealment Operative has that thing. It's called corrosive acid, something like that. One of the new abilities. It delays and it deals damage after a time. Same as the thermal detonator. You apply it, and you apply it ahead of time, and when you actually want to burst him, the thermal detonator explodes, and you can use a second ability with that. So that's clever use of the global cooldown, because you delay your actual burst, so it all comes in at the same time. That is a very important concept. And I'm going to show you why that is so important right now. So when seeing a Sorcerer use his Thundering Blast, which is a very high damage ability, and directly after that he's using another cast, somewhere I am sitting next to him and crying. Because you automatically proc your instant of the Chain Lightning. So I recommend always using Thundering Blast Chain Lightning. There are also video guides out there telling you exactly to do that, and it's not that difficult. It doesn't matter that much for PvE. Because the lightning, the chain lightning can be procced as well by the lightning bolt. It doesn't matter that you don't really have to use it together with your thundering blast in PvE, but for PvP I definitely would recommend using thundering blast only, in combination with the chain lightning. It's just so important. So the absolutely correct order right now would be to apply your affliction, then use the other dot, preferably with the proc you have from an earlier burst, and then you can use your thundering blast together with chain lightning and the lightning strike. And if you do this, it's not called lightning strike, it's another ability, doesn't matter. And if you do that in that order, then you will do a lot more damage. Now here's a side by side comparison slowed down that you can see exactly how much impact that has. Now the truly amazing thing is you can do that for every single class. Don't believe me? I'm going to run you very briefly through every single class just to show you that it actually is possible. So you have got these two cooldown abilities you actually have to use. Now I'm doing a small step, and now I'm going to do ambush snipe. Now through doing the step I enabled my snipe to get instantly activated. It's a new talent tree thing, and you can see the burst you can get out of that is absolutely insane. And again, it's the same rule. You just use an instant after a cast. Now granted, the one of the Mercenary is a bit more complicated, and I'm going to walk you through that one more in depth afterwards, just so you can see that there is again some play and burst potential in the entire spec, just to highlight it shortly. But I know you guys, I know you're melee players, I know you've got some Juggernauts out there, I know you're really not interested in me playing my ranges, so I've got the melees prepared for you. Now the Powertech in many regards is quite similar to the Mercenary, with this exception. He uses the shoulder cannon as a way of exploiting the global cooldown. So the shoulder cannon does not actually lie on the global cooldown. So as you can see right now, you can spam the shoulder cannons into the target without you respecting the global cooldown. So that's kind of the one exploiting thing. The other thing is the thermal detonator. That's also one aspect of this kind of burst, and you know, the overall high damage of a Powertech. Now, before all the operatives out there crucify me, I do not claim to know how to play this. This is just to highlight volatile substance. It is more of a proof of concept than really a guide, and because there's a lot more to play concealment operative, and I have merely grasped the general concept of it. I know the basics, but I haven't yet played it on level 60. This is just, you know, to kind of show that. So what you generally want to do is, you know, get your tactical advantages before you start bursting somebody. In general, this is not like a proper rotation. Do not use this and say, oh, Drewlik, didn't work, because it's not going to work like this. But you can, you know, use your volatile substance right now, and with the delay, you can suddenly start to get in some nice burst numbers right there, as you can see. Also, I'm a healer, so you're not going to see that big of numbers, but that doesn't matter anyway. So it's just, you know, this is a proof of concept, so you can see how, you know, you can delay with the volatile substance and then get more burst in a short period of time. Now, I'm sorry about this one. This one is a bit of an odd one out. The assassin does not really work around, you know, instantly bursting somebody. I know it's kind of weird to say something like that. He does burst somebody instantly, but it really revolves around stunning the people and really working that to your advantage, because there are very many stuns and disabled and stuff like that. So the most general combo I can show you for Deception, because you will be spanning Maul anyway, you're not going to do anything else, is that once you have got your 3 stacks, you kind of save them for the right moment, as you can see right now, and then you go like all complete murder mode onto somebody. So you use your discharge, recklessness discharge, and then more until the enemy is dead. That's kind of the basic idea. Also, there's another combo which I'm showing right now. It is the one where you low slash and use Crushing Darkness. You actually do hardcast Crushing Darkness as an assassin right here, because you wouldn't otherwise use your 2 seconds of the low slash. The low slash is a 4-second incapacitate, which would otherwise immediately get you out of the stun if you just, you know, ran behind him and mauled. If you incapacitate him, run behind him, use Crushing Darkness, and then maul, then you squeeze an extra ability into there. That's kind of a value concept right there, but you know, it's kind of a novelty thing. You only can rarely use it, and it's a 1v1 thing, and Deception is kind of different in this regard. It doesn't really fit into a proper thing, because every single ability of your rotation is burst, essentially. Everything is burst. There's no moment where you say, now I'm bursting. You're basically bursting every single moment you're at the enemy. Fortunately, Madness fits a bit better into the entire concept. You use your 2 dots, and then you just generally wait for your procs, you know, maybe deal a bit damage, maybe get some cooldowns out, and as you got all procs, you know, you can maybe think about spreading the dots. If not, you just stun the guy, use recklessness, and use all of your procs, death field, cooldowns, and yeah, he just completely obliterate enemies through that combo. You're not really a burster anyway if you're playing Madness, but this is the closest you can get in dealing massive amounts of damage in a short time, so that's kind of what you can get going there. Marauder? What are you doing here? You can't even reach your target. How would you possibly burst somebody? Come on, let the big boys play. Come on, no, please, no. I'm not gonna. I can't show anything. I mean, you can't even. How would you burst? I don't know. And whoa ho ho, here he is. Fucking Juggernaut, 10th of the battlegrounds. Unfortunately, though, I'm not level 6 yet, and I'm not planning to be anytime soon, and I do not have the execute proc yet. But I'm going to simulate the execute with my saber throw, so just imagine it's a saber throw. So start off, obviously, you know, jumping to somebody, using Impale, shatter your shit and ravage the hell out of him. Then you're going to use here the vicious throw, which I'm not doing, and execute him with a fourth scream. It's just, you know, basically every Juggernaut learns that at birth. You know, I'm not telling you anything new. You've done that anyway. The basic concept here is just, you know, you jump to him, you're immune, you root him, he can't run away, he's fucked, and you just deal the biggest damage at the end when, you know, he's at, I don't know, 60% and he thinks everything's okay, and then just vicious throw, full scream, and he's dead. And you know what you're doing. You did that anyway, so I'm not telling anything new. So, you know, that's my stance on the Juggernaut. So fuck you. So that was just, you know, giving you a broad overview and just giving you a general idea of how certain mechanics can work and how you can make them work better in your advantage. Still, it is not by any means a complete guide, and I just completely ignored the fact that the enemies could be using cooldowns. Your rotation, of course, has to be dynamic. You have to adapt to certain things on the fly, and of course, of these things. But you know, in general, if you're trying to grasp the concept of bursting someone, this is a start. Also, I would recommend what you can try, you know, doing if you want to get better at this, is just duel someone. And I don't mean dueling in the classical sense that you know, duel and it's life and death and stuff like that. You actually duel someone who does nothing, and you look at how much damage you can deal to him in the least amount of spells and in the shortest period of time. And through that, you much better learn how your actual abilities work, how much damage they deal, and how much output you can generate, other than, you know, if you would be at the training dummy, because the training dummy does not lose health, you know, and you can actually see the impact if you play against a real player. Obviously you should have PvP gear, but you get the concept. This is kind of a thing you can do, and yeah, just let me know if it worked for you. And if you're interested, at the end of this, I am going to put my Mercenary guide, in-depth guide of how to play innovative ordnance. And I don't know if I think it's kind of boring, but you can have a look at that if you're still interested. Otherwise, my name is Drewlik. If you want to do PvP, and as always, have a good one. So you're still here. How nice of you. So this is going to be how to use innovative ordnance. Now, at first, you should have 10 stacks for your supercharged gas right now, and you should use them so that you get the extra dot. So if you didn't know that, if you had that going, then you would get an extra dot. Also very important is that you have the 4-piece set bonus, no, it's the 6-piece set bonus that you automatically critically hit when you use unload, because that's a big part of this. You need the resetted mag shot auto crit for this burst to actually work. So it's the 6-piece set bonus you need, and it's 10 stacks before you can do this particular burst combo. And I'm only describing the burst combo. A full in-depth guide would be way too long. It would be entirely video on its own. But to do this particular burst, you will start off with the incendiary missile. You're going to use that onto him. Then you are going to use the thermal detonator, and then you are going to net. The net hereby is optional. You do not need the net. I only use that against very specific classes. I'm going to use it right here. And then you can use the supercharged gas, and then you mag shot. Start channeling the unload, and then you mag shot again for the maximum amount of burst, and you can see how much damage that actually was right there. And now you can see you also have a proc, so you could technically use an instant power shot, but the target will most likely be dead after that. So I actually parsed this, and the parser said that was 63k damage in around 15 seconds. So nobody is going to survive that, actually. And you have to be really particular about that combo. So I'm just going to, very slowly walk you through it again with some annotations. Now, as I said that the net was optional, I meant that I'm not going to use that against certain classes. I will not use it, for example, against a Juggernaut, a Powertech, or a Mercenary, because their defensive cooldowns do not revolve around any kind of movement, and I don't need to obstruct it. But against sages I can prohibit the bubble. So you start off with Incendiary, Missile, and Thermal Detonator, usual setup combo right now. Now the net is applied. If it is a sage, it's very helpful because you can't bubble. In the same second where I use the net, I will also use the supercharged gas. First mag shot comes in, then comes the unload. The unload resets the mag shot. I'm only going to get one tick out of it, so I can immediately use the second mag shot, as you can see right now, and the burst is complete. So you will be able after that to see the complete sequence again, just that you can get a feel for the actual damage coming into there. Feel free to rewatch this part as often as you like until you actually get that, because this is quite difficult to pull off, and even to pull this off in a real game is even harder. But I always try to accomplish that, and if you watch my videos you can have a look at that. So, again, this is the final goodbye. My name is Drewlik, you've been watching SWToR PvP, and as always, have a good one.